it's always a growing experience when you're healing. But healing happens simultaneously, instantaneously. The moment you affirm it, the moment you express it, the moment you allow it. You know, it's never like healing is not a process, but reshaping the consciousness, reshaping the heart, reshaping the mind to see that in a different way is a process. Is a process.
You're listening to the Redefining Wealth Podcast with Patrice Washington. This is a space that you come to each and every week to learn more about what it means to truly be wealthy. See, in this community, we don't subscribe to the surface level definition of wealth, which is all about money and material possessions. We believe in the original 12th century definition of wealth, which says it's about the condition of well-being. So each and every week, we seek to uncover all the other parts of our lives that impact our finances, even when we're not thinking about it. And I am so excited to welcome you back. Listen, if you don't know anything about the 6 pillars of wealth that we subscribe to, I want to invite you to go to patricewashington.com/6 pillars, and you can grab the cheat sheet there. But as for today, I am so excited to get into what I would call a 5th pillar conversation, because it's all about healing, in particular, self-healing. And I'm super excited because, as I told you, this season is all about me sharing like everything that I have used to help me navigate what I would consider one of the most difficult seasons of my life. And the ability to get through it with as much grace and ease and peace and dignity as possible has just come through utilizing so many different things. And today's guest, Londrelle, is here. And you guys already know, if you follow me on Instagram and you are in my Insta stories, you know how much I love me some Londrelle. You know how much I talk about Londrelle, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to interview him today. Now, before I get into that, though, I want to share with you the affirmation of the week.
You know, you got to speak positivity into your life, into your day. You gotta affirm positivity. You gotta affirm abundance. You gotta affirm yourself to wealth.
This week's affirmation is, I will go the way God leads. Purpose may require me to be illogical. As long as I'm committed to honoring my spirit authentically, I don't need the validation of external forces, even those that genuinely desire to protect me. I make time to be still and learn how to discern my fears versus the fears of others. I honor those feelings, yet I choose to create a plan to figure it out and honor what I believe God has shown or told me. I know that no matter what, all things will work together for my good if I continue to trust. Declare with me today, I will go the way God leads. Okay, so now let me give you a bit of a formal bio before I share my heart about what Londrelle has done for me. Londrelle Hall is a poet, author, and musician. His works, words, and poetry are deeply inspirational, and as an independent artist, Londrelle has released 7 studio albums, his most famous being Stay Free, and his most recent, Self Heal, which we'll dig into today. As the creator and voice of the popular mindfulness and meditation app, Eternal Sunshine, Londrelle's art and offerings remain anchored in his desire to serve and remove suffering from the hearts and minds of all souls. Without further ado, here is Londrelle.
Blessings, Patrice. It is an honor. It is a blessing to be here in the physical, to share space, to hold space, to give face to the name Londrelle that you've always been talking about on your podcast and on your Instagram. So I am so honored to meet you. So honored to just be in the same room.
Oh my gosh. I am so excited. I was driving to the studio today thinking about how I first discovered you because I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally listen every day to something, right? And I was thinking, what was the first time that I even heard Londrelle? And honestly, it wasn't that long ago. So at the time that this airs, it'll be about 1.5 years. And I was on a mastermind retreat with some women in Costa Rica. I did not know anybody there except for the woman who was holding the space for everyone. And it was such a beautiful experience. And I remember hearing about this idea of the new moon. And I wrote down what that meant and how it was explained to me. It was about new beginnings, and the new moon phase is a more introspective time and represents new beginnings as we plant seeds for the future. It's a good time to set clear intentions for what's ahead, clarify your goals, start new projects, acknowledge your growth since the previous new moon, right? And I created a playlist on Spotify, and I named it New Moon. And I was like, as I go into this season, because I had newly separated at that time, I knew that I didn't want to just listen to gospel music. And that's because my concept of God was starting to really expand. And I wanted to listen to stuff that just really helped me essentially vibrate higher.
Yeah.
And not be in a space where I always felt like I was begging or waiting for something outside of myself to come in and fix anything. I wanted it to be more proactive. So I made this playlist called New Moon. It had one song on it. And next thing I know, I'm at my desk and Spotify is like, listen to this. And I think Vibrate Higher. I know Vibrate Higher was the first thing. And it was like, I'm walking in purpose on purpose. And our whole motto here is chase purpose, not money. So purpose is a very big theme for me. And I was at my desk and I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Is it different?
And that's how I started to dig into like, who is Londrelle? And instantly, since that day, I don't think there's been a day that I haven't listened to you in some form or fashion.
That's so sweet to hear and to just receive. As you know, a lot of us are coming into this space where we want to know more about ourselves, more about God, more about life, and we don't want to be boxed in that. We want to be free in that. We want to feel like we have a say-so in that. Like we have, like it's a relationship, especially the divine relationship and the relationship we have with God and in ourselves. It's simultaneously one and the same. So we want to feel like, okay, we are included in that. And sometimes, like you said, gospel music sometimes can be like too begging, like I'm your child, God. I can come to you as your child and not as a beggar off the street. Like I need something, like I want something. I just want to have that relationship with you. I just want to be with you in this type of way. And that's when the fun begins. That's when the magic begins, when I think when our relationships become more of like, God is our beloved, God is our friend, God is our father or our mother, just shifting the dynamic and the perspective of the relationship that we have with the divine to a more personal. And I think my music does that. It makes God personal. It makes God like, okay, God is right here, a friend, like someone you can talk to in the language of your heart. Yeah.
You said, I think my music does that. Let me say, no, your music definitely does that. Because in this season of expanding my idea of who God is, one of the things that I've shared with the audience was that growing up, I felt like God was always watching, judging, looming over, waiting to damn me to hell.
Yeah.
And so that really is restricting. Like there's no freedom in that to just be fully who you are. So we tell people to walk in purpose, on purpose, and to like embrace who they are. But that doesn't always fit into the box maybe of how, you know, other people think it should be, because we're all unique and we have these different ways we should express ourselves. And who gets to determine what's good and what's not?
Yeah, who gets to judge that?
Yeah.
Who gets to say no, like you said, what's wrong and what's right, and not like seeing it as something wrong or as what's right, because I don't, I spend a lot of time with God, but in my own relationship, for me with God, nothing is wrong or right. It's just a lesson and an understanding, deepening of understanding, because truly God does not judge, as we are all expressions of truth and all expressions of God. So God knows whatever is to happen, whatever, God knows our tendencies. God knows our flaws, and God still loves unconditionally. Without judgment. And I think, just that reframe of unconditional love, what it means to truly love someone unconditional, there's no judgment in that. There's just complete allowance of that person to show up in their fullness, because, this human predicament is somewhat limiting, and we can't express our fullness because we're always being judged. And that comes with a lot of shame, and that comes with a lot of guilt, because we want to just express ourselves in our fullness. And sometimes it's we have people saying, no, everyone has opinion about everything. For everything that you do, someone is going to have an opinion, and those opinions come with judgment. But it's important to always remember that we are expressions of the infinite, and there's no such thing as perfection. It's just expressing the infinite, allowing the infinite to express itself through you in the way that it wants to express itself through you. And only you can understand that. Only you can understand that, the way that God expresses itself, herself, itself, himself through you,
So even right there, so you say the way God expresses himself, herself, itself.
Yeah.
I want to know how you grew up in terms of spirituality.
Not like this. Not like this. It was more so like we went to church, my mom, kind of forcefully went to church, and I didn't really feel that connection. I always felt, like you said, God was always judging, waiting to condemn me, waiting to send me to hellfire. And I had a lot of questions about, I grew up very curious about life, but I was very introverted, so I didn't really ask those questions. It was more so just sitting and watching and just observing, and not feeling like a relationship. It more so feeling like, some sense, I don't hate to say it, but like slavery. Although we are servants, although we are here to serve, but it felt like slavery. It felt like I must do right. If I do wrong, then that's the end of me. God judges you. And so I grew up very just not interested in anything God, just not really interested in anything God, until maybe my early 20s. Early 20s is when I began to become more seeking of things outside of the Christian dynamic, the Christian paradigm, and more so looking into Eastern philosophy and Buddhism and Hinduism and everything that I can find. And in those scriptures, in those contexts, in those texts, it was, God in a different view. It was a God in the form of a beloved, God in the form of a friend, God in the form of not just a son, but a father, but a mother as well, in all expressions, as the people that we are speaking to as well. So having a more universal perspective of God, that really helped me develop a more personal relationship with God, and not just one dynamic of God as the father or the mother, but God as the friend and the beloved, really helped me open my heart more to loving God and being able to freely express my devotion to God, and to pray with just strangers, just because I understand that, the person is there, but God is also there as well. And every conversation is a conversation with God, and every meeting is a meeting with God, just in a disguise. It's like every day is Halloween. Every day is Halloween with God.
I remember being really curious too as a kid, and wanting to just know why people were shouting, or why they were falling out, or why are they crying, and all these things. And then just wanting deeper explanations of stories from the Bible. And I stopped asking questions after I got shut down a few times of well, that's just what it is, and then you just learn to just go with it. Oh, okay. And for you, it was early 20s, but I have to be honest, I have for the most most of my life just lived more religiously, just like in the routine and trying to be a good girl and a good person. And if I'm good, do I get to heaven? But there's really no standard for good because there's nothing in particular that lists what it means to be good versus not. Or, some people might be like, well, you just follow the 10 Commandments, but there was no concept of heaven in the Old Testament. So they're like, and then what actually are the 10 Commandments? Because most people will list 3 and then tap out, right? But we're trying to live by this standard that it just doesn't exist, doesn't really exist fully, or isn't really printed out, know? And so because of that religious space, by the time I found you, I had been exploring these ideas for probably 18 months, 2 years or so, where I just kept feeling like God is bigger than how I have perceived God to be. And I can make decisions that maybe other people don't resonate with, but knowing that I'm making decisions that feel right for me. Even if it doesn't look like what other people think it should. And your music has just been so instrumental in kind of ushering in that freedom. One of the things you talked about, loving God and loving others, I've seen you do lives where, you answer people's questions or you're just there. And I was on a live one time and I saw somebody, they made a statement about your masculinity versus femininity, something. And the way that you answered in such love, because I just knew, I was like, oh, he probably about to get him. I know I was watching and I was reading the comments like, oh, who is he? What is this? And your response was so loving. I was blown away.
Oh, wow. I don't even know what I said, but it's just, I know who I am. And so being gentle with people because people don't know who I am. And for me, I'm try not to ever be triggered by someone's opinions or thoughts because they're coming at it from a worldwide view and they're coming at it from their perspective. And it's just like we're all looking at the same thing, but we're seeing it differently. And so it's just being mindful of that, but also knowing who I am enough to not even be triggered by someone else saying that I'm this, because I know who I am and what I stand for and how I may come across. I understand that I may sometimes come across as too gentle or too kind or a bit effeminate, but I mean, that's just an expression of me. I just allow myself to express myself freely, without any boxes. Okay, this is a masculine thing to do. This is a feminine thing to do. This is a human thing to do. But this is what the Spirit wants to do, and this is how the Spirit, my spirit expresses itself. So not putting a cap on that, not building any walls around me, so that I can be able to express myself fully and not worry about being judged.
Yeah. That was so good. Because I don't remember exactly what you said, but I remember that I felt such compassion from you. And it made me, even as someone who was watching, at first when I saw the comment, I was like, now why would you come on here with that nonsense and that foolishness? And then watching your response and your energy and the way that you answered but served that person. It literally has made me more thoughtful because I used to ignore people. So I'm not you're never going to catch me cussing people out on Instagram or anything like that, right? But I would ignore people. And what you taught me in that moment was it's okay to correct people in love. Even in a space, in a platform like that, I just felt such a sense of love and compassion for, I think you said something around, like you said today, your perspective and your worldview makes you feel that this is what masculinity is and this is what femininity is. But what it also did, that conversation freed me in a sense too, because coming out of, this season in my marriage, I used to think that I was very masculine. And I don't know, it was something about how you said it that made me feel like all of me is okay.
Yeah, you are enough.
You are enough. All of me is okay. So there's no reason to feel like I need to change, these more. We all have both, right? Both energies, but change this part or try to make myself more feminine, whatever the heck that meant. It just literally allowed me to just embrace myself in this season, to just be.
To just be. I think it's a time to be masculine. It's a time to be feminine. It's a time to just throw both of them out of the way and just be, you know, because we begin to like split ourselves up. Like, okay, I have to be this way with this person. I have to be this way with this person. Instead of just allowing ourselves to be, and the more that we allow ourselves to be, what is essential for that person will come out. What that person needs will come out because, okay, we are embodiments of totality. We are embodiments of all that is and all that will ever be. And if we allow ourselves to be, if the masculine needs to express itself in this conversation, in this exchange, then the masculine principle, the masculine energy will express itself, and the feminine will take a back seat. And it's a dance in that way. So we're always dancing. We're always interchanging roles, even between man and woman, man and man, woman and woman. Whatever that person needs, if a person is just being and comfortable in their being, whatever that person needs will come in. You know.
Yeah, I definitely have felt that. Okay. So like I told you, I think before we even started recording, I literally feel like your music has been like the soundtrack for my healing. Like I start every day with morning asana and gratitude. Doesn't matter if I'm in my prayer room or on the Stairmaster. They come with me in the morning. How has music helped you heal in your own life?
Dramatically, just beyond belief, because music has always been my way of expressing myself. I was very quiet, very not shy, but introverted to the point that I like almost became shy. Still growing out of that, but just because I lived in a very traumatic environment since I can remember up till I was 17. I was just very withdrawn, very disconnected from everything outside of me. I had to escape because my environment was so violent and so dark and just not a place that a child should be. I can honestly say, but music was my escape. You know, music was my escape to just express myself. To myself, just to let me know that, hey, I'm okay. Just to give me some sense of purpose, just to give me some sense of, I belong somewhere, you know? And so music has always been instrumental in just my expression. And the more I just listened to more music and the more I just became an artist myself or a poet myself. I first started like writing poetry or just journaling and stuff. But always had a natural gift for rhymes and words, and I just love words. So always had a passion for words and writing down words. So music has always been instrumental in just me expressing myself. I should say it wasn't even music, but just me expressing myself.
When did you realize your words had the power to heal others?
Probably when I realized they had the power to heal me. You know, probably when because I never create from a perspective of what do people need. I always create from the place of, okay, where am I in my life? What words do I need to hear? Or I may reflect on my life and what words did I need to hear at certain points in time in my life. So it's always for me first. It's always doing the experiment on me, like a mad scientist, just always doing the experiments on me musically, sonically, and seeing that it actually works for me. My last project, I cried every song. I cried on every song, writing every song.
It's okay to cry.
It's okay to cry. Cried every song, like listening to the playback, through the writing process, through the recording process, just tears. So that's how I know.
Yeah.
That's how I know, because it works on me. And so I understand, like, I'm not alone. Though sometimes we may feel alone, we're not. You know, we all have similar stories that intertwine, that lead us on a path to self-discovery, that lead us on a path to self-healing. So we can all learn from each other's pain, because it connects us with our own pain. And then we're allowed to say, okay, this is how that person dealt with it. Let me let that be a doorway into me, and let me discover myself in this way. Yeah.
I really identify with that, just even here on the podcast. Yeah. I have used this platform for years now to share literally what's going on with me and how I'm navigating different seasons of my life, whether it was as a wife or now a newly divorced woman or a mother raising a teenager. They've grown up, like, you know, hearing about, or my daughter has grown up and everyone's heard about what this process has been like. And I am so grateful that I never saw it as a space, especially because I was known as a finance expert first. Yeah. So people would say, well, you just need to stick to talking about money. Yeah. Now you're branching off. You're telling people your business, which we know Black people, we don't tell people your business. Like all these things. But I literally invite the guests that I want to hear from. Yeah. And I feel like the audience is blessed as an extension of that. Or I talk about what is resonating for me, like what's going on in my life. And I think that we are so connected that even if someone does not have the exact same experience, there's something that they can glean from your process. Yeah. Right. And I love that. My first grade teacher, Ms. Boynton, used to say, when you know something, you have a responsibility to share it with friends. Yeah. And this podcast taught me that my words heal. Now, I don't rhyme like you do, but still, using words help. Now, I know you are loving the Redefining Wealth podcast, but do you know what would take it up a notch? It's if you invested in a copy of my brand new book, Redefine Wealth for Yourself, How to Stop Chasing Money and Finally Live Your Life's Purpose. Now, on the podcast, you hear me talk about the 6 pillars of wealth every single week. That's fit, people, space, faith, work, and money. And I want you to incorporate this into your life. But let's be honest, the podcast isn't enough. I poured 114 lessons from my own life, the rituals, the mindsets, the behaviors, the attitudes that I had to shift in order to redefine wealth for myself in each one of these pillars. And now I've made it available to you. So you can make sure to pick up your copy in paperback, hardcover, or even listen on Audible. Whatever you do, make this a part of your library today. Kind of going back, because we mentioned It's Okay to Cry, which is on the Self Heal album, one of my favorites. I started to forward that song to so many men in my life.
Wow. I was just talking to a brother yesterday about, like, because he felt like he was just getting into this season of his life where he just wanted to cry. Like, he's a producer, and he was saying, like, he was working with the artist and he just started to cry, but he had to wipe his tears like really fast so that she wouldn't see them, because as a male, it's like you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to, especially at work and in front of people, especially as a Black male. You're not supposed to shed tears for anything, not even the most traumatic or extreme things. You're just supposed to suck it up and go about your business. But that's like suppression of energy. Like those tears are expression of energy. And so when we suppress that energy from expressing itself. We suppress those feelings from expressing themselves, and we stop ourselves from truly just not moving past it, but moving through it.
Yeah. One person in particular cried in front of me, and then he immediately said, like, "I'm so sorry. I know I look so weak." And I was like, "Weak to who?" I thought that was beautiful. Like, I was so happy to create a space where you felt comfortable enough to cry. Like, there's no judgment in that. But I have heard and seen these memes and comments, even on social media, where women will say, like, "Oh, I don't want no man that cry." Yeah. How damaging.
Yeah. I guess that's like, even like our mothers, like, I can only speak from my experience. Like, my mother, she would always tell me, like, I was too soft, like, too, she called me a water bag. She always said, like, why you cry for? Because I was very sensitive as a child. So I would cry, like, over words, just her telling me something in a certain way. And so I grew to be very emotionally numb and disconnected from just people's words or expressions or just feelings, my own feelings and emotions. So just going through going throughout life and relationships, not being emotionally available because of my upbringing, where I was not allowed to even cry myself, and no space, no container was held for even as a child to even cry. And that they grew up as men who don't cry and who are not in touch with their emotions. And if they're not in touch with their emotions, they're not going to hold space for a woman to express her emotions and freely, you know, and which women sometimes can be a lot more emotional than men. And so you have a dynamic where the woman doesn't feel heard, the woman doesn't feel safe, and, you know, the man doesn't feel connected to her because he's not connected to him in that way. You know, and that's something that I'm still learning, to hold more space for my wife, and hold more space for the women in my life, especially in my mother as well. As you know, the song "Healing Conversations," that was a real conversation with my mom, an opportunity that we had to cry together, and the first opportunity that we had together to me crying and her not disallowing that. You know, and her crying and me holding space for her tears as well, you know.
You know, I started with, you know, I shared it with a lot of men, but honestly, the first time I heard it, which it came out last summer at this point, the first time that I heard it, I cried, and I had been separated for 9-10 months, I think, at that point. And listening to that song made me realize that I hadn't really cried.
Yeah. Well, it's okay to cry?
It's okay to cry. Yeah. And there's, I forget the exact lyric, but there's just something about, like, basically you've allowed yourself to be hard, like on the outside, you know, but you really want to cry inside.
Yeah, you really want to.
And there was something about, yes, I made this decision. Yes, I know that this is the best decision for me. Yes, I feel good about my choice. But I had created, I think, a story that, and for those reasons, there's no reason to cry. Like, you're good. Because I grew up also in a, you know, South Central Los Angeles. It's like, you got to be a thug to walk through there, right? Yeah. So I got used to not really crying. And I remember crying, listening to that song in the shower. And then I had a conversation with my therapist, and I was like, am I okay?
Yeah.
Like, why don't I cry more?
Yeah.
And we had this whole conversation about, was I even allowed to cry as a kid? So not just even for boys, but for girls, for any of us who are just taught that you push through.
Yeah.
And not realizing that two things can be true, right? I can be very comfortable with my decision and also embrace the grief that comes with it. Like grieving what I thought my future was going to look like and the fact that's going to be completely different. And just because I'm comfortable with the decision doesn't mean that I can't allow tears to flow.
Yeah.
It's okay to cry was a blessing to me.
Yeah.
And healing conversations. On this season of the podcast, I also have my forgiveness coach who's going to participate in this season, because I didn't realize how much unforgiveness I was harboring, and not towards my ex, but towards different people in my life who I realized I felt like taught me to accept behavior that was not like cool. And it has prompted some healing conversations.
Yeah. It's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Hard conversations.
Yeah.
How would you say your relationship with your mom has grown, I guess, since having healing conversations?
I think it's still a work in progress. There's still a lot of unknowing there. There's still a lot of there's all forgiveness there, forgiving the person, but also forgiving the situations. But there's a lot there. There's a lot of residue there. And so it's still a work in progress. It's nothing that happens overnight, because you have to reframe your whole emotional intelligence around this person. You have to reframe your whole mental awareness around this person. And it's just allowing more love into that throughout the process. So it's never an overnight thing, reshaping your mind about a certain thing. It's never an overnight thing, reshaping your heart around a certain thing. But you can allow love into that space and allow love to be the guide and to be the guiding compass in that space. And it happens over time, but it's like I said, it's a growing process.
Yeah.
Like I forgive her. I don't understand. I understand a little bit. I think growing up, I've been over it, but I never allowed myself to grieve over it. I never allowed myself to reflect over it. I just got over it. Just keep it moving, keep it pushing, like keep going. And that's kind of been my drive in life. So that even just those traumatic situations have been a driving force for me to go forward in life. So I can't be, mad at the situation because it's helped me get this far. And without those situations, I wouldn't be this far. I wouldn't have been shaped in this way.
Yeah.
And I love this person that I am. So I have no regret of the molding. I have no regret of how I was shaped. So it's just going back into looking back with more forgiveness and understanding and allowing love backwards, but also moving in love forward as well. So, because a lot of times we just go forward and just, okay, love from here on out.
Yeah.
But we also have love to give to the things that we never allowed ourselves to grieve, the things that we never allowed ourselves to acknowledge and express. So it's always a growing experience when you're healing. But healing happens simultaneously, instantaneously, the moment you affirm it, the moment you express it, the moment you allow it. It's never like healing is not a process, but reshaping the consciousness, reshaping the heart, reshaping the mind to see that in a different way is a process. Is a process.
Oh, that's good. I don't think I've heard that expressed that way. First of all, I have to call out loving backwards because that was so good, like allowing yourself to love backwards. Because what I got from that song in particular was just compassion.
Yeah.
Because those conversations that I've been having have really illuminated a lot of factors I never knew anything about. So it's given me more like, oh, that's why you behave that way.
Yeah.
Like I have at least more compassion for why maybe you made certain choices or said certain things. And I like that loving backwards. But you said healing happens the moment we decide?
Yeah, the moment we allow.
The moment we allow.
The power that heals is the soul. The power that heals is God. And like we said earlier, we don't have to beg for that. We just have to allow it. We just have to ask it. Healing is of our own nature. That's why it's called self-healing. Like you ask yourself, come to yourself and ask for the healing or command that healing or summon the healing. And the healing happens. It's just reshaping the heart and mind. It's like, we've come from God. We rest in God and we return to God, but not any point in time in that coming and resting and going back, God is always there. And it's just saying like the air that we breathe, it's never like we have to go somewhere and breathe. We don't have to go outside and breathe. It's just breathing where you are, being where you are, receiving the healing wherever you are. And I think a lot of times on our path, in our journey of healing, it feels like a burden. It feels like a burden, but it's not supposed to be a burden because we're taking off. And any moment we choose to just take off these garments, we could just take off these garments. Anytime we choose to just take off these traumas, we could just take off these traumas. But we make it difficult by thinking that it's all on us. It's our problem to deal with. It's our burden, and that, it's a process. It can be a process if you see it that way, if you make it that way, but it also can be very liberating anytime that you choose it. Anytime that you choose it, because it's available to you at all points in time.
That is so good. Okay. So something that I made a decision about, and also one of your songs has been really helpful, is Love Your Body.
Yes.
With Lizzie. So I told, they know it. When I turned 40, I did this episode about numbers that I was like not going to be attached to anymore. And one of them was like numbers on the scale. And it was also the dress size number. Because I'm like, girl, what you was at 25, I don't think that's coming back. 30 is not coming back. 35 is not going to come back. You just need to love yourself. And I remember Love Your Body is like my new gym anthem.
I see.
I love that. Yeah. Why was that song important on an album called Self Heal?
The body is an expression of the self. And, growing into adulthood or just growing up, we're taught to just shame our bodies in a certain way. We're always comparing our bodies to other people's bodies. We're always saying, okay, I don't look like this body, or my body looks better than this body. But it's just more so accepting your body, loving your body, really receiving your body as a vehicle to take you into healing. Without this body, you wouldn't conceptualize healing, because it will happen spontaneously and instantaneously. But having these bodies, they are a gift from God. They are a gift from God, and they are expressions of God. So we don't want to just, be all in our hearts, all in our minds, all in this space of forgetting the body, because the body is also spiritual. The body is also divine. The body is also light, an expression of light. So we don't, in this path of self-healing, we also must bring the body with us, I like to say, because especially on the spiritual path, most spiritual teachers don't. They teach you to just treat the body as something that you should be ashamed of, something that you should be that you should not allow to be pleased or pleasured or experienced in a certain way. It's like an obstacle on the spiritual path, but I don't see the body as an obstacle on the spiritual path, but rather a tool for awakening, but rather a tool for healing, but rather a tool for ascension, but rather a tool for divine expression. So in my teachings, in my life, it's imperative that I embrace all parts of me, all expressions of me, as an offering to the divine. Not just my heart, my mind, my life, my service, but my body as well is an offering unto the divine, and not excluding anything from the body of Christ, from the body of God, but including everything, because I don't want to leave anything out. I don't want to leave anything out of this relationship that I have with the divine.
So good. Well, for anyone who's ever struggled with just body image, this is the song, because I love this. It's the jam. I mean, you call out everything: hips, eyes, lips. Like, you just I know they're probably like, what is she listening to? But
no, it's a vibe though. It's a vibe though. It doesn't sound like spiritual music.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like. But I gave you the spiritual take on it. But it has a surface level. Okay, embrace your hips, embrace your eyes, embrace your teeth, embrace all parts of you. Because that's you.
Yeah,
that's you.
Yeah. Okay, another vibe. Lest you believe that it's all it's all deep. Everything you talk about has such deep meaning. But another vibe is all summer.
All summer. Yeah, that's my joint. That's my joint. That's my vibe. That's my cut.
Okay, that's a little bop. Okay, why all summer?
All summer, that's just like this is where I am in my life. Like, I've been doing this a while. I've been really on my grind. Like, I've been grinding all summer for 30-something summers. I've been grinding. And this is like an opportunity. I feel like I'm in my prime. Like, this is prime me. Like, this is prime Londrelle. So it's just really just popping my stuff. Just popping my ish.
You know what?
Yeah.
It was one of the songs that I was really singing when my divorce was final, because I felt so good. Yeah. And I would run into people who would find out and they'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'm really in a good space. Yeah. And, you talk about cashing your checks. I'm like, yes, Londrelle. Like, I love that song. I want to talk to you all day.
Yeah. This can go 3 hours.
Oh my gosh. There's so much here. There's so much. Yeah. I would love for you to just share about abundance, because I know you participated in Deepak Chopra's Journey to Wellbeing series.
Yes, that was amazing.
And you talked about abundance.
Yeah.
What's your take on abundance?
My take on abundance is absolutely free. It's an energy that you just have to really tap into, be available to, accept and receive as your fair share of abundance. It's not like only in wealth or material things, but it's also in the immaterial things, the energy of everything. And energy is totally free. Like, we just have to really open our hearts, open our minds to the possibility of the infiniteness of everything that is. Life is abundant. Life is abundance itself. And we, especially coming from our demographic, we believe in scarcity. Yeah. We believe in scarcity more than we do in the infiniteness of all that can be and all that is. So my idea or my conception of abundance is all that there is. There is not it's not split up. We can only split it up in our minds. We can only divided in our minds, but abundance is totally for me, totally for you, and there's no scarcity in that. You can be rich and wealthy. I can be rich and wealthy. The whole world can be rich and wealthy if we accept it. if we accept it, if we not separate ourselves from the abundance that is ourselves as well. So it goes back to what we talked about earlier, separating things as this and that. That's a dangerous game. That's a dangerous game because we begin to say, okay, that's for you and that's for me. And what you have, I can't have. And what I have, you can't have. But so for me, abundance is truly a mindset. It's really a mindset, and knowing that all that I don't need everything, but I have access to it.
Yeah.
And that's important.
It's available to me.
Yeah, it's available to me.
Yeah.
Because we don't need $30 million right here in this conversation. We don't need any money in this conversation. So, but outside of this conversation, when something demands that, I know I have access to it. I don't have to chase it. I don't have to seek it. It's seeking me, because that opportunity for it to come in, that vessel, that container for abundance come in, it has made itself available. And that's with anything in life, wherever you are, it's like what your life can handle, but what your life also needs. And you always have an ability to level up.
Yeah.
Always have the ability to level up.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you what we call around here Redefining Wealth Rapid Wisdom Questions. So you're just going to tell us the first thing that comes to mind. All right. You ready?
Here we go. Yeah.
How do you define success?
Success is purpose. Living in purpose.
Yes. Okay. How do you define wealth in 3 words or less?
Wealth. Living joyously. Living joyously is the greatest wealth.
Yes. Our last season was about scaling joy. So I love that. What's one book that has redefined how you see wealth?
Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich. I probably read that book. I'm on my 4th time reading it. So that's my only financial book that I've ever read, and probably would ever read, because it really just, every time I read it, I scale up. So I think I don't know the secret yet, but I read it and things just start to happen.
Yeah.
Things just start to happen.
So that's one of my favorites too. And have you ever read the version written by Dr. Dennis Kimbrough?
No, I haven't.
Think and Grow Rich. He's a mentor of mine, and that was a book that changed the game for me. I got it at 20, and I read it all the time too. Love it. Okay, you're going to fill in the blank. My name is, and to me, the truth about wealth is.
My name is Londrelle, and the truth about wealth is that it's always available to you.
Amen. Londrelle, I know that I discovered you on Spotify, but you have so many other things going on. Is there anything in particular that you just want to share with folks? How do they get to experience all things Londrelle?
All things Londrelle. Probably mostly experience like my life. Probably Instagram /Londrelle. Twitter, I'm not really on Twitter, but /Londrelle. Facebook /Londrelle. YouTube /Londrelle. But yeah, those are the most primary ways to experience me day to day. But of course, musically, sonically, Spotify, iTunes, anywhere that you listen to music, anywhere that people listen to music, or podcasts as well. I'm there expressing myself in some sort of way. Yeah.
That's awesome. You guys, I'm actually going to do you a favor. I'm going to make my playlist public so you all can get into it. Londrelle and some other vibes, like I said, that have just been the soundtrack of this season in my life. And I'm so grateful that I get to thank you in person. Vibrate higher.
Yeah.
I truly feel that even in some very low-level conversations and situations and occurrences, keeping Vibrate higher as just like one. Even when you came back out, I have to say this too, you got me on Self-Heal because you added like a whole nother verse to the end. And I was like, oh, this is on here too. And then you gave us a little surprise. But that song in particular, but really just your whole body of work, such a blessing. And I'm so, so grateful to have the opportunity to look you in your eyes and just say thank you, because I truly believe that you've been so instrumental in helping me navigate what could have been, a very tumultuous season. And I can sit here in all honesty and say that I got through this season and I continue to grow through this season with as much dignity and peace and joy and love and forgiveness, because your words just permeate every space that I occupy every day in every way. And I'm so grateful that you said yes and that you were obedient to the call on your life. So thank you.
Ashe, thank you for just holding space in your heart and your mind and your life and your struggles and your triumphs for the music to kind of just be like a perspective. And I think that's what I most offer is perspective, to allow that person to see things differently and they can make the best decision possible for them in any given situation. And that allows a person to see things a little bit differently, but with wisdom that also includes your heart as well. So you're not just out here just thinking with your head, but you're also filling up from a space of intuitive heart-centeredness and guidedness. And so thank you so much for just being the embodiment that you are to be able to receive my gift. Sometimes I feel misunderstood and just not heard, but thank you for being one of the many, but one of the few who really are in tune with the gift in such a way that you get it, and that truly means a lot. That you actually get it, apply it, and your life is beautiful because of it, and you are radiant because of it. Yeah.
Thank you. You guys, I hope that this conversation with Londrelle has been a blessing to you today. I cannot say enough how much just allowing the words to wash over me has literally allowed me to trust myself on a different level, to love myself on a different level, to have a greater appreciation for who God really is in my life, and to also love others. Even if I don't feel like they're necessarily being lovable, that's not the point. It has literally just been, like I said, a soundtrack for healing. I'm going to link to that playlist and all things Londrelle in the show notes. I really encourage you to just get into it. Go explore some of these songs for yourself. Hopefully you find something that really ministers to your soul as well. Let's talk about it in the Redefining Wealth Facebook community. Come on over because it's free. You can also find me on Instagram, Seek Wisdom PCW. And until next time, I want you to go live your life's purpose, find fulfillment, and earn more without ever feeling like you have to chase money. I'll talk to you later.